Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. We weren't quite sure when we'd be doing this one because there were suggestions it would be a Milos Monday. The original Ornstein articles and stories had Tuesday, then Wednesday came and nothing happened. But like the opposite of a Craig David story, it finally landed at midday today, didn't it? Thursday, the 26th of June, midday, Milos Kerkez was announced as a Red. So it's all positive from that point of view. And I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, we've got to get straight into this, David. It's almost been the worst kept secret in football since Milos Kerkez started retweeting, putting eye emojis on everything, his dad, his brother, everything like that. It's been sort of drawn out in that way, but we should still be excited by this one, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, really, because sometimes, and it's happened in the past where you've had a target previewed for so long that sometimes they end up going for an alternative because, people buy into the first link that you hear, it's going to be them. And sometimes it does end up being an alternative. And I think there was something in the links to Ait Nouri, for example. I know that he was a player that they kind of liked. Maxim de Kuiper, is it? Also someone who was kind of on the radar. They've been kind of, light contact there, I will say. But I think what's become clear for, the further we've gone along with this really is that they were kind of a backup really. And Milos Kerkez was very much the first choice at left back if they could get him. And they've definitely kind of got that. And I think, as long as it's been previewed, I still think it is an exciting signing because it's the area of the team that is probably most ripe for improvement. Yeah. And you're improving a title-winning side, so that's exciting in itself. And he's also, he's exciting as well as a player because he just offers so much, and he's very young as well, but he's already very good, and he can get even better. So, a lot to like about this, really. And I do think it's an exciting signing, even though we've seemingly known about it since about March.
I was going to say that this does feel like it's been going on for ages, and with Kerkez, we've had plenty of comments before he even signed. We've had plenty of comments. Now he's signing, there'll be interviews, and no doubt the family members will get involved. Anything you've sort of seen or read in the last week or so that stood out for you at all?
Yeah, I kind of really liked in this interview, actually, where he talked about Szoboszlai saying to him that, you come here and this is kind of the pinnacle of football, really. I like that, and I feel like you've kind of heard similar things from Frimpong, similar things from Wirtz as well when he signed. And the reason I kind of like that really is I just think we've seen a shift in the last couple of years, and particularly off the back of last season, really, in how Liverpool is viewed in European and world football now. I mean, for years and years, we've always said, haven't we, Liverpool is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and that's absolutely true. They go to, even when they were a bit crap, they go to pre-season and you turnouts are unbelievable. We know it's a worldwide club. But what I think now is kind of its status within modern football now has really reached a level that puts it on that kind of, pedestal really, in terms of Liverpool is seen alongside Bayern Munich. It is seen alongside Barcelona, Real Madrid, all these kind of giants alongside and possibly above at the moment, Manchester United. It's that kind of name now. And I know it always has been as in European royalty and they've won things, but I mean, with the modern younger player, I don't think that kind of pull was there in recent years. I think they've really had to have this kind of fresh and sustained success in recent years to kind of really re-establish themselves at the top table of European football. And I think you can just see that in Kerkez's his quotes there. I think you can see it in his desperation to sign. Similarly with Frimpong, the fact that Wirtz chose Liverpool. It just all backs it up, really. I think Liverpool really, really are. This one's not necessarily the statement signing, but I really do think they are now back, at the real peak of European football and a real big hitter again, which is, it's been a slow and arduous road back to that. But it's, I think it says a lot about the work done by this ownership and Jurgen Klopp and all the players that have come before to get them into this position whereby players are kind of begging to get there, really.
I love it, yeah. And it's the way people have been talking about it now as a destination club. It's the place that players want to end up at above all others. And I mean, we can talk about who he's turned down as well. But the one thing that, and maybe it will surprise people, We had the inclination that obviously he flew in on Monday. People did the flight tracking as normal. It was all supposed to be sort of Tuesday was the intimation. And then there was kind of not a wind back, but a thing from David Ornstein about almost it sounded like the fax machine was broken or there was little odds and ends to sorts type of thing. And then nothing came on Wednesday. Was it a bit strange the way this was done, or is this just standard that way it can work with transfers?
My knowledge of things is kind of when I was at the club, certainly if as soon as it was done, you would put it out. So I don't think, there must have been something. They've not been sat on that interview or taking the time editing it or anything like that, or working out what the pictures are going to look like. It's nothing like that. It will be something technical on the transfer side, I imagine. And in my experience in the past, a lot of the time, sometimes if there's had to be a little delay or whatever, it's usually kind of related to a visa or something like that. So wouldn't be surprised if it was that, because the nuts and bolts of the transfer, there was no question that was done. Nobody had any concerns on that. So I think it might have just been a little bit of paperwork with the Home Office or something like that, because that typically has been in the past, in recent history anyway, has been a little bit of a stumbling block that can take a few days or whatever. So my guess is that it was that really, and but it's all sorted now, and they could announce him today.
And I suppose on this, and it's interesting the way it's worded by yourself and other patch journalists. The story is very much it's that phrase up to 40 million, which indicates it isn't just a flat 40 million. Is it your understanding it could get to that amount?
Yeah, but Liverpool would usually as well kind of want to make out that they've got a bargain there as well, and will publicise that. So I don't think they're probably going to be a million miles off 40 million, to be honest. I think it will, if they're much lower than that, it's probably not. It's not probably 35 million or anything like that, plus 5 million in add-ons, because I think Liverpool, it would have been worth their while to put that story out there to show just how good of a deal they got. So I'm sure it's the top end of that, really. But I still think, Bournemouth were pretty hardline, weren't they, about wanting 45 million and not wanting to budge on that. So to get him for 40 million, I think is still a decent fee. And, it's expensive for a left back, but we're talking about, one of the best left backs in the Premier League. I mean, he's got to be top three at the moment, hasn't he? And he's only 21. He's going to get a lot better in the next few years as well. So he's got all the ingredients to do that. So, if he stays at left back, as Andy Robertson did for the next kind of 8 years or so, you'd be absolutely delighted with that, wouldn't you, for 40 million? So, could end up proving to be a snip. But of course, he's got to go and do it on the pitch now.
Yeah, he's got to go and do his talking on the pitch. Absolutely. And maybe we've got a new character in the mix, because Papa Kerkez maybe replaces Papa Diaz, and we'll talk about that as well shortly. But they've done well to keep Papa Kerkez under wraps, haven't they, until today, and not having anything for him. I mean, have you got a feeling he could develop into a character we're talking about more?
Well, we've seen it with Luis Diaz, his dad, enough, haven't we? Seen, he's a big character. I mean, obviously, what happened to him was terrible, but I mean, in terms of his character around the place, when you see with his, he's dancing and celebrating the goals and stuff, and in the away end all the time. So maybe we've got another one of those, another character like that, which would be great. It's funny actually, because I heard a lot about him being a Manchester United supporter, his father or whatever, but. I haven't seen a lot of signs of that now. He seems absolutely delighted to get into Liverpool, doesn't he? I think you've seen the clip of him playing Allay in the car as well by Jamie Webster. So, I think he's a hardened Coppite now, which for someone who used to support United is quite the transition, really. So, I think he seems really pleased that his son's a huge club like Liverpool, and I'm sure he'll be supporting him all the way as well. And I'm sure he'll be getting in that away end as well without too many credits as well. So that's, there'll be comments on that as well. But he seems like a character, doesn't he? Absolutely.
I won't mess with him, I'll tell you that as well. So, it was certainly a new one on board. And I almost think like a week ago, we were talking that it was always going to happen. Kerkez was going to come in. And the natural sequence of events felt like Andy Robbo, the Atletico Madrid talks. And it was funny even that in his interview, Milos Kerkez actually mentioned Andy Robbo as the best fullback in the Premier League. And then there's a bit of a story developed today. Not that it really matters about the player, but Atletico Madrid are set to sign a left wing back, which then makes you think, well, 3 doesn't go into 2 ultimately. So I don't know if this was expected by sort of yourselves and the patch journos, but it seems to have caught a lot of fans on the hop. And there's a bit of a suspicion of what's going to happen at left back now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Robbo. I certainly, I asked around actually off the back of that news coming out in terms of, does this mean we can rule it out? And no one kind of said yes yet. So, maybe it is still on the table. I think people generally they would be in a position to say, okay, well, yeah, it's probably not happening now, but no one's kind of saying that yet. So, maybe one to keep an eye on. I don't really know what they've got at left back and whether it's a situation they still might sign another or whatever. But it's a bit of a straight, or whether this guy's to come in and I don't know, to play if he's a left wing back to play as a kind of winger or whatever. You never know with Simeone, do you? So it's an interesting one. But yeah, the latest I asked, and it was no one was kind of putting it off the table yet, but you don't really know, and maybe people are keeping the cards close to the chest on that one. But it is an interesting one. And if that option not to go to Atletico Madrid is there, then is Andy Robertson so desperate that he just takes whatever's on the table to go elsewhere, or does he sit it out and maybe do another year at Liverpool? It's a fascinating one. And then, of course, what does that mean for Tsimikas, whose language has kind of softened a little bit around an exit as well recently, which, again, maybe he's looked at what's out there and thought he doesn't fancy it. It's fascinating. But as you say, they've got 3 left-backs now, so they're going to have to do something. And he must be confident that they can do something. So, really, really interested to see how that all plays out, and very, very hard to call, I would say, on the information I've got available to me.
It's a tough one because, I mean, whichever way it gets dressed up, Kerkez is coming in to be the starter and, go there and obviously develop that. There's absolutely no way all 3 of those left backs are at the club next season, isn't there? One's going to go, even if it's we can start with a gentle nudge, but it feels like it could get to a forceful push by the end of the summer.
Yeah, this is it. They're not going to be wanting to pay 3 left backs at the end of the day. And, Robertson's on decent money. Tsimikas is. Kerkez won't come in for peanuts either. So, from a squad building perspective, it makes little sense to have the 3. But I also think if you get kind of later in the window, all 3 aren't going to want to be sat there either. Whoever's kind of left around, the third choice out of those 3 is going to have to kind of make the big choice, aren't they, in terms of what they want to do. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective. But as you say, Kerkez, he's spending 40 million on the left back. He is absolutely going to be the one who starts the majority of the game. So, it's kind of up to Tsimikas and Andy Robertson now to battle it out and work out how that's going to play out. But it's really, really interesting.
Does feel like one that could run for a little bit there. And George saying, Tsimikas to go, please, and keep Robbo based on quality rather than financial or age considerations. People have got a fair few views on that one. But back to Mr. Kerkez. I know you've written about him. He's a fascinating player off the pitch, but mainly on it, where he brings sort of his energy and threat. So just for those that haven't read the article yet, what are the big things in sort of the research and the writing that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this before, but one of the things I was kind of a little bit, concerned about when the initial links came out. This was towards the very start of the season. Actually, it's kind of, what's his output like on the attacking side of things, and it wasn't that hugely impressive actually. But then, by the end of the season, he just seemed to kind of he just improved on that every single week, really, and you kind of saw that in his numbers. I think he ends up, I think it's 4 fullbacks who end up with more assists than him in the Premier League last season. So he's right up there for that. I think he gets 6 in the end. But in terms of, he's obviously his defensive numbers, just to quickly touch on those, he's tackling more, he's intercepting more, and he's winning challenges at a higher rate than Robertson. So he's a better and a more aggressive defender than this version of Robertson. He's more akin to kind of Pete Robertson in that regard. And then on the attacking side, as I say, because you've seen that kind of, that improvement in him, I say, the assists are pretty good, but he's also kind of shows up really well for dribbles, and he shows up really well for, crosses into the penalty area. So last season, he managed 27 of those, which put him second in the Premier League. Now, Andy Robertson used to regularly appear in the kind of top 10 for that statistic when he was in his prime. So the 18-19, 19-20 season, I think he was in the top 10 for crosses into the penalty area. And both those seasons, those are the seasons you regard as his prime. Kerkez is doing that now. So he's not only kind of doing all the defensive things and and he's got the aggression and all the physical quality it brings. The attacking stuff is just going up and up and up. And he's doing very early Andy Robertson things, which I just think that's exactly what you want, isn't it? You want a left back who is exactly like Andy Robertson, because he was very, very, very good, and he still is quite good. So, I just think that all the numbers that you look at there are extremely kind of convincing and encouraging. And, with a bit more time, he's going to get even better. So that's absolutely massive as well.
It is funny, like when you mention the statistics, and I'm looking at the few articles today, but as you mentioned, when they look at assists from open play, he's third in the Premier League. Anthony Robinson, the Fulham left back, is at the top. But also, as you mentioned, just open play passes, as they call it, into the box. He's second, just behind Robinson. And people, if you want a deep dive, if you just want to search Data MB Kerkez, I mean, a lot of his statistics, they do stand, obviously, with senior fullbacks and across the Premier League. And he is a nominee, it's important to say, for the PFA Young Player of the Year. So that's by his compatriots at the same time. But it won't have gone unnoticed by the club when they're researching him. When you look at top 5 leagues under 21 fullbacks, he comes top in like duels, touches, progressive. There's just a raft of things there. They are seeing all those statistics into the long term, aren't they?
Yeah, this is it. And I mean, what's great about that as well is because Bournemouth are a very good side, so they're kind of front-footed, and that will be helping him. But Liverpool are even more so. So he has more chances to get more touches, to receive more progressive passes. So when you kind of you create a kind of a web to compare the two players and you put them next to each other, Robertson shows up higher in a lot of the kind of attacking statistics. But you've got to factor in that it's only marginal for starters, but that Robertson gets more opportunity to do all these things. And so you put Kerkez into this team, and I really think like his numbers are going to explode next season, even more so on that attacking side, not least as well because he's also crossing to better players, better finishers, putting better movement in front of him. So it's just massively encouraging. And I think he's only 21 and he's this good, and you just think, how good is he going to be when he's 25? And it's a really kind of exciting prospect, and it's just gives you that instant improvement down that left-hand side, which was not as weak as people said, but it was a weakness for Liverpool last season. So he's just a really exciting signing, really.
It is crazy. And I mean, we've said before, Arne Slot talked about the PSG model and looked at their flying fullbacks such as Nuno Mendes, Hakimi. He's now got Frimpong, who was third in the Bundesliga for crosses into open play. Kerkez, similar. Both almost just rapid fullbacks, road runners almost in that regard. Do you think that is going to be a big feature of the play next season? We are going to see more of the fullbacks just going past like road runners.
Yeah, I hope so, because I just think, what that does in terms of causing chaos for other players is so useful. And I just think, you looked at Liverpool last season, I do think they lacked a little bit of pace through the team. And they've definitely added that in those two. I mean, Wirtz is absolutely no slouch either, is he? So, they're adding some real pace to the side, which I think is something, as I say, they lack. So that's really good. And I just think teams with overlapping fullbacks that really get on the bike are they're exciting to watch, and it just works in terms of disorganizing the opposition defense. So you've got a guy like this coming in who's absolutely rapid, can get up and down, he's tireless, but he can also provide a quality pass or cross when he's there. It's just everything you need, really. And a lot of the time he's basically on that overlap. He's going to be acting as a kind of winger, an old school winger, kind of 96, 97 season type forward, but which means crossing with quality, not just kind of clipping it into the box. And you can back him to do that, and you can back him to have the pace to get there and the pace to beat people as well. So it's going to make the football more exciting. I think it's going to make Liverpool more dangerous. It's going to give opposition managers more things to consider in terms of how do you stop this team. It's going to be really difficult for them.
Yeah, no two ways about it. We are going to be even more excited if that was possible. And I suppose he adds on to Jeremy Frimpong, he adds on to Florian Wirtz. Now there's Milos Kerkez. It's steering into next season as well, but this even reinforces it. It's almost impossible at the moment to say the Reds aren't favourite for next season, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. I still have yet to see, yet to see that City and Arsenal have solved the problems that they had. I've not watched much of that Club World Cup, but I believe City have been still getting counted on quite easily, which is good news for Liverpool that they've not kind of solved that issue. Maybe they will, but it's that doesn't seem to have happened yet. So that's a big problem for them, and they need to get the signings right to make that happen. Arsenal, seemingly just keep signing defenders and goalkeepers and defensive midfielders. I still, they've got a lot to do to solve their problems. So, in Liverpool have already got the core of a title-winning team with some very good signings on top. So, I think with Liverpool as well, what you look at it and you think the signings they make generally are quite successful. So, you've got a lot of faith in what they have done. Whereas you can't always say that for the teams that are around them. So Arsenal, they might make signings going forward and you go, they've signed a striker, they've solved that problem. But that striker might not be very good. I hear Manchester United fans every single summer window saying, we've done it, we've solved all our issues. And then the players they've signed take to the pitch and it's like, oh God, no, we're still terrible. But whereas Liverpool, they tend to, generally speaking, they tend to work. So, I think they're massive favourites going into next season, with the quality that they've added and the quality they've already got. And it's up to the other teams to show that they can catch them.